Right, okay, I think we're ready to get started now. Thanks everyone for joining me. Hope you're having a good morning so far. Hope everyone's well, coping well with the current situations, and I suppose taking this time to learn something new, which is hopefully what you're doing when you're joining me here. My name's Chloe Lawrence, and I'm a SharePoint technical consultant at Ultima. And what we're going to be looking at today is how we can share, communicate and collaborate with SharePoint, and just kind of exploring SharePoint and a few different tips and tricks along the way as well. So I do imagine that we've got a range of skills here. So we might have some newbies, we might have some people who are already quite familiar with SharePoint or who might have actually used classic SharePoint before, maybe before it's all got a new kind of modern interface. So this should hopefully be really useful for you as well, just to explore the capabilities of SharePoint now and all of these new modern functionalities, which are super useful, especially when it comes to communication and collaboration and kind of getting that content out there. So I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. It looks like it's all running as it should do. So I'm just going to quickly go over what we're going to look at during this webinar. So obviously the key topic is around communication and collaboration. We're going to have a look at team sites. So there are kind of individual sites which you may use just for collaboration as a team or within a particular department. And we're also going to look at communication sites, which are more for just posting content out there and just making sure that information is available to everyone. And this can be something that's business wide. And I think it's so important to make sure that people have such easy access to information now, things like company updates, what's going on across the business, and also allowing us to see what the different areas and different departments are working on. And SharePoint's got some really, really good tools that kind of allow us to round up that information and publish it all in one area. We're also going to take a look at the document side of SharePoint and how we can kind of share our content there, collaboration, organization and things like that, and how SharePoint actually allows us to enable different people to work in different ways. And people do have their own ways of working and they don't all necessarily want to kind of fit into this same structure. So SharePoint really allows us to be very flexible with that. So I'm going to talk you through how we can do that as well. And then finally, we're going to have a look at news and publishing content in SharePoint. And I think the news feature is really, really useful, especially times like this when we're really trying to encourage people to get together, and we want to make sure that everyone's kept in the loop. And it can be quite different when you're not in the office anymore and you can't just nip into a meeting room. So using things like news, publishing, and just using the content features across SharePoint are really useful here as well. So let's just jump straight into it. I've not really got any slides. What we're going to be looking at really is just using SharePoint. So we're going to go straight on in. And here what we've got is a little scenario that I've made. It's called Chloe's Cupcakes, and this is just a SharePoint site. And I'm just going to have a little talk about kind of the structure that we've got here in this particular scenario. So you can see here that this main page that I've got is called Chloe's Cupcakes intranet. That's what I'm really using this for, and this is a communication site. So like I mentioned before, we're using this communication site to get all that information out there. And it's mainly an area that you would use to do a lot of publishing, and there would maybe be a lot of readers, but there's not necessarily going to be a lot of people customizing and adding documents in there and things like that. It's more just for kind of making sure that everyone's staying in the know. So we're going to have a little look through this page here as well, but I just want to highlight to you what we've got up at the top here. So we've got a global navigation bar, and this is what we can enable when we create a hub site. So our hub site in this scenario is our intranet page. So this is kind of a central area that you can imagine everyone navigating to. And then within that, we've also got a few different sites that are connected up to it. So we've got the sales team, the IT team, and the finance team in this particular scenario. And if I just navigate off to the sales team, just to give you a quick peep into what that looks like, just so you've got an idea of the structure before I go into a bit more detail. So you can see we've got a team here, and this is really where the sales team can see content that's a little bit more relevant to them, but they've also got access to the intranet page as well, which is where all of the kind of general business-wide content is going to be published. Okay, so just having a look at this intranet page, and I do want to make a point that you don't necessarily have to use SharePoint for your intranet. It's a great tool to use it for, but if you do have an intranet elsewhere that you're kind of not looking to move away from, then that's absolutely fine. What you can use these communication sites for is just another form of publishing information. And it also depends on the size of your business. If you've got and maybe an IT team that's got multiple different departments in it, you can imagine that if we had an intranet here and then an IT team and then all these other tiny little teams within it, that could be quite complex and get a little bit difficult to manage. What you may want to do is have a communication site like this just for the IT team kind of area, and then you can have your different little department areas connected into that. So it's not always the case that we've got to use these communication pages as an intranet, which I just wanted to make clear from the offset. But yeah, in this scenario, we've got an intranet page, and you can see here that we've got quite a nice visual. We've got a hero up at the top, which is basically the name for this big kind of image layout. Not only is it images, it's also links, as you can probably imagine. I'm just going to have a quick scroll down the page as well so you can see what else we've got in here. We've got a latest news section here. We've got an events section, and we've also got a documents area here as well, which is basically just a little snapshot from this documents area over here. So let's just go through what we can actually see here, what the functionality is, and how this is really kind of helping employees and just users in general access that information that is the most important to them. So just to be aware, all of these kind of areas within SharePoint are super easy to edit and modify and update. So we can actually just edit these pages very easily, which might be something that your marketing team wants to manage, or it might just be a dedicated site owner who has control over this. But it's very easy to kind of quickly change and mix things up as you need to, and just to keep things fresh, which I think is one of the issues that you may get sometimes with other sorts of intranet pages or other pages for communication. You can see that they do sometimes, they're not being managed very easily, and that can usually be because it's difficult to manage them and it's hard to kind of go in and make those changes. But I think with SharePoint it makes it very, very easy to do that, and I'll show you how we can do that a little bit later on as well. But I'm just going to click a few of these links and see where they take us. So we've got this company updates for April here, so let's click into that. And this is basically taking us straight into one of our news articles which have been created. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail about that later on, but that's just to show you that it can kind of take us into another page in the website. And it may be sometimes that you do create these different pages and they're not getting the views that you'd hoped. So putting them up onto this main area here is a really good feature. Another different type of link that I've got here is this working from home tips and tricks. So if I click into that, I'm actually being directed over to the BBC's website that's got some tips and tricks for working from home. So I think this is a great feature, really. The fact that you can just get content from elsewhere and use that rather than reinventing the wheel all the time. You can just think, oh, that's a great bit of information that I've seen, and I think that's going to be useful to a lot of people across the business. I'm just going to stick a quick link into that, and then it will take the user straight off there without the need to kind of manually create something yourself. Another thing that we've got here is just a few other links. These are just some examples. You may want to you can do what you will with these, but we've got a link here on how to collaborate with Microsoft Teams, flexible working options, which might be just a Word document with some more information, and then we've got a social hub here as well, which could take you off to another system, another website or something else that you might use to do your social interaction. It could take you off to Yammer or something like that. As I say, it's completely customizable, and then these images that we've got here can also be changed and moved around as well. So just to take a little bit of a more in-depth look at the news area, and this really is one of my favorite features, and just to drop in here as well that these are completely customizable. What information you want here, there's lots of different things we can choose to add in, which I'll go into when we kind of look at editing this site, and just so you can see the different kind of things that we can put in here. So I've got a news feed here, and what you might notice is we've actually got some news articles which we can see are coming from the intranet page, but we've also got some news that's coming from the sales team. And this is a really good feature, because what we can do is we can actually get the content that's been created in the sales team if we want, and we can make sure that that's being pulled through to our homepage so everyone can see it. And this might not always be the scenario that you want, but quite often it's really useful, and it saves things having to be published and shared from one place to another. We've just got kind of a general roll up here of the sites which have been associated to this site. You can even have particular filtering to help you decide what you actually want to allow to come onto this news section. Obviously, you may have some more private sites which can be kind of left out from this as well. And it's also dependent on permissions that the user has, but I just think that's a really good tool of kind of making things very, very easy to access and just to kind of join together. But as I say, we're going to have a little bit of a more in-depth look at the news features later on. So scrolling down again, we've got an events area. Again, these events can be coming from our main site, or they can be coming from the sites which have been connected up to it. It's very easy to just add a new event, and we can make this look quite pretty as well. We can add a picture in, we can name it, times as usual, location, and some information about the event, which is very, very useful. And then, as I mentioned before, this documents area is just directly being pulled from this documents area over here. So it may not be something that you'd want to have on your home page. Another very useful one actually is the document activities. So you can maybe see who's been updating what and when, and that kind of gives a bit more kind of relevant content rather than just taking a direct list from this documents area here. So what I want to have a look at next is the document library that we've got on this site. So we're just remembering that we're kind of thinking of this intranet page as that sort of central area, and this is kind of where people are going to come to just for general info across the company. So this documents area that I've got over here, and if we click into it, we've got a pretty simple document library, which isn't a problem. We've not done much kind of configuration. We've not really jazzed this up very much. I'm going to kind of go into that a little bit more when we have a look at the sales team's document library, because I just wanted to keep this very simple and straightforward. But what we can see here is we've got a couple of pinned documents, and I think that's a very, very useful feature for kind of collaboration as well. And it's super easy to do as well. What we can do is click on these ellipses. Let's not do one that's already there. Click on these ellipses and do pin to top, and then it will just pull that document straight up there. And that's just good to, especially for somewhere like this, we've got maybe 2 or 3 documents which are really, really important, and we know that people are looking for those documents quite a lot. So having those pinned to the top just makes it so easy for people to grab that information that they need. As you can imagine as well, if we do have a long list of documents here, it can get a little bit more difficult to manage. As I say, we'll look at that when we look into the sales team's document library. But I would really see this area as kind of a key place for storing things like general information about the business, It might be some sort of templates, like you might have a levers template in Excel kind of thing for a lever request or something like that, which actually in an ideal world would be improved with the Power Platform, but that's a whole nother area that we can get onto in the webinar next week. But yeah, here I've just used this place for general information with not a lot of customizations here. So yeah, it's just kind of a nice straightforward area. Okay, so just going back onto this homepage now, I want to kind of compare this with the sales team homepage that we've got and just some of the features that we've got on both of the pages and how we can use them. So if we're kind of customizing this homepage, if we just click on edit here, and as I say, this may be something that you want your marketing team to have control over, or one particular person. This is how we can kind of change these different elements of the page. So we might want to change this and it change the link to another area within our site, maybe a new news article which we've created recently. It might be good to have that there, or just a particular document. We can navigate directly into that as well. We can choose what sort of an image we want, and we've got some other options down here as well as to whether we want a little bit of text to display to kind of encourage users to click on a link, just so people know that we're kind of being taken off elsewhere. Other general things that we can do with this web part, and that is what kind of these different elements of the page are called. They're called web parts, and it's basically kind of dividing the page up into different sections to allow us to have different cool features and different things going across. So just with this particular web part, so as I mentioned earlier, this is a hero. So this is basically just a big image, which I think is great, and it's just a nice visual for people to see. I don't think people tend to want to see a big chunky load of text when they first go to a page. But what we can do, we can customize this. It may be that you don't always have 5 bits of information to display here. You could even just have the one. It's kind of completely up to you. And then all you would want to be doing is saving that page and republishing it when you're ready. So it kind of allows people to work on changing this information, and it doesn't always have to be actively published. It can just be kind of showing the content which was there previously. So I mean, in terms of communication and kind of sharing info, I think it's really good because it's just super easy to change these things around, and it's not one of those cumbersome tasks that can often get put to the back of people's minds. It's not really prioritized very much. What I'm going to do as well, I'm just going to add in another web part here just to show you kind of how you can do this. Let's have a look what we've got. So we've got some featured web parts. Highlighted content is good, so that's just kind of bringing in particular content that matches a certain criteria. If we have a scroll down, we can use some of these buttons. It might be a flow button that you've created to go and trigger off some sort of a process. The countdown timer is a really nice one, and I'll show you that in the sales page. A group calendar, that may be a very useful one, or a calendar that's kind of pulling in, again, using that feature of pulling in information from different sites and summarizing it all, so you can kind of get that insight that's company wide rather than having to kind of click into different individual areas. Image galleries, Microsoft Forms, the little people feature, which I'm going to show you later on, a Power BI report, that's another great tool if you want to kind of allow people to see those company insights. A world clock may be a very useful one as well if you are more of a global company. And I think that just allows everyone to see the information that is really valuable and important to them and helpful as well. If it is an intranet page, it's probably the fact that you're going to have this as your home page and your landing page when people open up a browser. So it's good to kind of have a variety of information there. So now let's kind of compare this with our sales team area. So as I said, this is connected to an Office 365 group, and you also have the option of connecting this up to Microsoft Teams, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later as well. But we can see here how we've got actually a variety of different web parts. As I showed you just on the intranet site, I was adding in that web part. That's basically the same thing that we've done over here. So here we've got a nice countdown timer. So the end of the financial year, that may not be relevant company-wide. So that's why it's really, really nice that we've got a home page for our sales team. Not only have we got our documents area and our conversations and notebook, which are pretty much just associated to the Office 365 group, but we've also just got this home area that so they can, the sales team can just share that content that is most relevant to them. So we've got this countdown timer ticking away. What we've also got is a nice feature, which is that people feature, which I just touched on earlier. And what we can do here, we can actually click into a person and we can see more information about them. We can even find them on LinkedIn, who they're reported to, and we can even start a chat with them directly from here. So, I mean, in this scenario, I've mentioned to reach out to the latest members of the team. So it may be that you want to have kind of your new employees of the month in here. You might want to just use it for managers or people that people tend to need to reach out to a lot. You might want to put those in here as well. But I just think communication, great. We can see the new people in the team. We can send them an email and start a chat. I think it's a really, really nice feature. And what else I want to touch on here as well, and this is kind of the functionality across Office 365, is that we can actually go in and view the files. And these are just the files that you will have shared with that particular person. So they're the files that you might be collaborating on. It's just one of those nice little tips and tricks that you can use just to kind of save you having to search for documents. You might find that this is a nice, quick, easy way to do that. So again, here we've got some news articles, and you may remember that we can actually see these on our intranet page, and that's because we've got that set up to allow other sites to be kind of published to our intranet page. We've got a documents area, and you can see that this is formatted slightly different because we've got a different layout here. We've got two separate columns. So this column here is giving us our documents, whereas over here we've got some other features. So these are kind of split up. We've also got our quick links, which again is quite a nice area to direct people off to other areas. It could be your IT service desk portal. It could be just how to use SharePoint. It could be anything really. It could even be somewhere within the SharePoint environment that you want to navigate people to. It might be a particular document that you always want to be there. And I think that's about it for this kind of area. We also have a calendar, but for some reason my having some issues with my events syncing through. So let's just pretend that there are events here, but you can see that if the sales team do have an Outlook calendar, which they will do because it'll be an Office 365 group, the events that are relevant to all of those people can just be displayed in a nice visual here as well. And this is that activity feature which I spoke about earlier as well. So this is just the latest activity on the documents that have been created. So it's just more up-to-date information as opposed to the other way of viewing documents. Okay, so just one other thing that I wanted to touch on is just a slight comparison across these two sites. So in our intranet page, you may notice that we've got our menu up here. With our team site, it is displayed on the left and it is just a slightly different format. And I think that is useful because it kind of helps people determine and know that they're in a different area to their kind of main intranet site. Another thing we can notice as well is that we've actually got this global navigation. And because it's a global hub navigation, this means that it's just for all of those sites that have been associated to that hub. And in my case, the hub is Chloe's Cupcakes intranet page. And what you might notice as well is that all of the colour scheme and the branding and things like that has been picked up from that intranet site. And that's because it's the hub and it's kind of allowed all of those themes and and content like that to be pushed out to the sites which have been connected to it. So we're just kind of making sure that everything ties together very nicely. It might be that you don't actually want all of your teams to be associated to a hub, which is absolutely fine. You might want to use your team sites for things a little bit different, like working on projects. You might have a team site for that. And using SharePoint as your kind of main area for discussing things on the project. There's a lot of different kind of ways that you can use it, and it doesn't have to be necessarily the way that I'm showing you today, but this is just more to give you an idea on how I think it's good for collaboration. Okay, so let's take a look at the documents area now that we've got in the sales team. So we had a look at the documents in our intranet page. Let's have a look at how the documents are being used in the sales team. So you might notice that there are a few extra bits of information here. So what we can actually see is the document type and the product, and also the version and this created by, which I added in as well. Now, a couple of these are just the default SharePoint columns, and you can choose whether you want to show and hide these just to make things comfortable for what you need to see. Things like the created by, modified by, and the dates and times associated to those are always going to be stored by SharePoint, but they might not necessarily always be in the list by default when you create a document library or something like that. So it is just something you can go in and do. Add a column, show and hide columns, and then you can just tick whatever it is that you want to see here as well. This is just all the different bits of information that are stored about a document naturally anyway. And just to touch on these two new columns that I've added in, you'll probably notice that it's still a bit of a boring document library. It's not very nice. It's not very easy to read, but I'm going to show you how we've kind of grouped up some of this information and why it's important to add in some columns like this to help us kind of categorize information and make it very easy for people to find and view. So let's just talk about what we've got. So we've got a range of documents, and we've got some document types here. And these document types are actually a drop-down list. The same with our products. So I can choose if my document's about a lemon drizzle cupcake, then I can tag it in a way to say that it's about that particular product. And this also helps us when we want to do things like filtering and sorting on particular bits of information. But let's first take a look at how we can kind of customize and how we would actually create a document in here. So if we do have a document, and I'm just going to go in and edit this just using this eye icon over here. So this is going to open up the details about the document. And we can see a lot here. We can see a preview of the document if I actually had any content in there. I'm sure that would look good. We can see who's got access to it, and we can also see the information. And this is where our little drop downs come in handy. So we can define this document further. And this is so valuable for when you do want to kind of categorize information. And what we always try and avoid having is folders within folders, and generally I'll always kind of recommend to not use folders because things can get lost and it's too many clicks, and people don't want to be clicking all the time. They just want to see the information that they need to see and maybe just kind of filter stuff out that they don't want to see. So using these to kind of tag our documents, we can always add in more document types, and then they'll be available for people to use as well. And we can just kind of click through these and set it as we kind of want to see it. What else we can see here as well is just the activity of the document. So it's just another one of those very nice features where we can see who's been doing what and who's been making changes and things like that, which is particularly important in a collaboration environment such as this. And just as I've made those changes, you may have noticed that my version number has gone up. I've only got major versioning enabled on this library, but you can have minor versions, which means just for those kind of smaller changes, it would go to 5.1, 5.2, for example, instead of kind of going up an entire version number all the time. Another thing that I want to touch on here is the filtering and views. So we've got this with big list of documents, and it does look pretty messy to me. So what I've done is I've actually created a couple of different views to allow us to see this information a little bit nicer, a little bit easier. So we're in the all documents view at the moment because that's just what I've got set as the default. I've also created a nice view called by document type. And this is where we can really see the benefits of using those extra columns and adding columns in and customizing them and making them kind of fit your needs. People probably might not want to always categorize by document type. There's a whole variety of other things that are probably unique to your business that you'd want to kind of categorize something by. But we can see here how that's just kind of clarified everything so much easier. If we only want to see sales literature, let's just expand that one rather than having to see absolutely everything. And it just gives us a very nice and straightforward view. I also did one by product. So again, if we've used this product column, we can just see everything that's associated to that particular product. So again, it's just a very nice way of viewing things. So I'm just going to go back to the old documents view, just so I can show you how kind of individual users are going to be able to choose how they want to view their own information. And again, this is one of those really, really valuable features that I think are great about SharePoint. So say I'm a particular user and I only ever want to see things that are sales literature. I don't care about anything else. I'm going to just click on sales literature and I'm filtering that and I'm going to click apply. Okay. And then I may also want to order by, let's just order it by newer to older. So we want to see the content that's the newest. So now I've made those changes, you might notice up here that there's a little star, which is kind of indicating that we've made a change to the view, to the default view. What I'm going to do, and if you imagine that I'm any standard user who's just kind of coming in and working on this library, I'm going to save this view and I'm going to give it a name. Oops, my view. I don't want to make it public. I've only got that option because I'm kind of one of the site owners. I'm going to save that, and then what's going to happen is that's going to become my own view. And this is just really, really nice because it stops us having to create loads of different libraries and things to allow people to see information how they want it. It just gives people the ability to do it themselves, and you can obviously create views and create system views for everyone to see, but I think allowing people to have the ability to create their own view is really nice, and they can kind of always use that and always reference that rather than needing to add filters on all the time if that's not, it's kind of adding time and it's not what people want to do. Like I say, we try and avoid people having to click too many times, and being able to create your own view I think is just a really nice feature here. Just one last thing while we're looking at the library in general, let's take a look at over at the filtering. And these are just some of the kind of default filters we've got here. We can use this slider to filter our content, to only see things that have been modified in the last 30 days, or obviously if we're going past 2020, this would be a lot longer, and there'd be some more options here as well. We've also got some little tick boxes to choose the information that we want to see as well, and then that's just directly filtering everything over here. Right, I'm just going to go back to the all documents view now. So we're just back in this standard view. As I say, having probably the best practice would be to have one of these views as our default, just because it stops people from having to go and change. But again, it's up to yourself as a business and how you kind of like to make things visible to people. So let's have a little bit of a look now at what we can actually do with these documents. So we're going to talk about kind of sharing them and how we can get alerted when documents are added to this library, which I think is another good feature that people can sometimes not notice and forget about. So let's take a look at one of these documents. So one thing that you might notice is we've got a little red icon over here. If I hover over it, you won't see, but just on the About Our Lemon Drizzle document. And that's because that document's been checked out. Now, you might be familiar with checking in and checking out of documents, but just in case you don't know, this is a document library, and in this scenario we've got a lot of people collaborating, and that is also allowing people, and I'm sure you've probably seen it before, where you can kind of click in a document and then you can also see that another colleague's in that document and editing, and you can see the changes that they're making, which is great, and it's a really nice feature. But what you might also want to do is say, hold on a minute, I don't want anyone else to edit this document. I'm making some quite serious changes to the design of this document, and nobody else can edit this document at the same time. It's all well and good that we want to use this area for collaborating, but sometimes you just want to have a document to yourself. So in that scenario, what we can do is click on the ellipses here, and this is where we've got lots of different options. But what we can do is go over to more and click checkout. And then once we've done that, we've basically checked out that document to ourselves, and it means that nobody else is able to edit the document. So it's just one of those nice things that we can do to add a little bit more kind of security and stop things going wrong in a sense. Once I'm done checking out that document, and bear in mind people can still read the document whilst it is checked out in its kind of older format, its pre-checkout format, if that makes sense. We can come and check this back in once we've finished editing, and we can say a little comment here as well, and then click check in. Realistically, you just want to put maybe what changes you've done to the document if they're very significant. And then another thing that we can do is just have a look at the version history. Sorry if I'm kind of clicking too fast, I've got a lot of stuff to go through and I'm cautious that it's 10 past. So here we can see what's been changed on the document. We can see, oh, okay, it's been set as a sales literature document type. The product's about raspberry vanilla. That was done yesterday. And we can see the comments that have been made when this was last checked in as well. So we've got a nice view of all the information there. So let's have a look at how we can share these documents, and you've probably noticed that we've got this little share icon here. We've also got it up here. We can also go to it from here if we really want, but let's just use this button here. So when we want to share, we've got a couple of different options. We can choose who we actually want to share this to, and bear in mind if some of these options are greyed out, it will be just because of how SharePoint has been set at a global level. So most likely scenario is that you don't want to be sharing links to anyone who has the link, because if it does go to the wrong person, then it's going to give people access to that information. And so what we can do is we can say, yep, people in my environment with the link can view this. And I might also want to allow editing to those people as well. So I'm just going to allow editing on here and click apply. And then I'm going to send it to a particular person. So let's use Alex, who's just the only person who I actually know in this environment. It's all test data. So we'll go with Alex. We can add in a little message. We can obviously add more people. We can do it to a kind of group of people if we really wanted to. And then we can just click send. Our other options are to just copy the link. Maybe that's going to be useful if you're having a Teams conversation with someone and you just want to give them a quick access to the document. Your instant message is going to go through a lot quicker than an email. Or we can open up an Outlook window that's going to just attach that in. So that's a good one to use if maybe this message area isn't enough. You might want to put a little bit more text in there. You might want to add some other attachments. So going into Outlook from here as well is another good option. So that's how we can share our documents. And the other thing just kind of around sharing and staying up to date within a document library that I want to show you is the alerts feature. So if I come to this ellipses here, and I think it depends on your screen size, it may just show in the menu bar up at the top automatically. But what I can do is I can click alert me. And I'm hoping that if you are watching this, if you do need to refer back to this information, this webinar will be available. So I know I'm kind of going through a lot of things, but I've got a lot that I kind of just want to get out there and that I think is really useful to help you kind of get started. So here we've got an alert, and what we want to do is create an alert for this document library. Great. We're going to send them to myself. So it's an option here whether you might want to have a few key players that need to know when anything changes in this document library, just to kind of monitor what's been modified and things like that. It might just be a case of a user coming in and choosing to set up the alerts for themselves. We can choose how these alerts come, so it's going to come to me via an email, and then we can also choose when do we want to get these alerts. So you might just want an alert when a new item has been added to this document library, and also have some kind of options here to see whether when someone changes a document or when someone changes a document that you've created. I think that's probably quite a useful one. And then we've also got the option to send a notification immediately or send a summary of what's been going on, which again just gives us a nice sort of administrative view. You can create more than one alert for this same document library. So if you do want to have one for when items are deleted and one for when items are added, but not all changes, then you would just go ahead and create 2 different alerts. And then I won't go into this now, but if you just go to the manage alerts area, that's where you can keep those up to date for the future. Right, okay, so I'm cautious that I've gone through quite a lot. The last thing really that I want to, well, there's kind of a couple more things, but the second to last thing that I want to show you is the news features. So I'm just going to head over back to our intranet page. And if you imagine that we've just got the permission of an editor here, we can see that we've got our latest news section, and like I said before, we're kind of grabbing some of this content from the sales team and all of our other sites. If there was lots of other sites, we could choose to have those here as well. So let's just take a look at how we can kind of add a news article, and what I wanted to show you is how we can add news from elsewhere. So if you remember, we had a link off to that BBC article here. That's just taken us straight to the website, but it's just kind of a link. It's not necessarily a news feature. So what I want to do is create a news feature, and I just want to give employees an update on coronavirus and the latest information. And I just think, what better place to put it than on our intranet page, because everyone's going to go there and everyone's going to see it. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a news article, and what we're going to do is a news link. And I just want to show you how kind of nifty this is at picking up some of the content from its original source, and it saves us again having to write loads of content and copy information from here and there. So I'm going to copy this link to the page and I'm going to paste it in here. And what you'll notice is we've got that preview image that's picked up straight away automatically. So again, we're not faffing around searching through Google Images to try and find something. It's automatically picked up a title from that page, but that is customizable if we did want to change it. And another really nice thing is it's also picked up a description. So this is just that first content there taken, I think, directly from here. But yeah, it's just taking the information straight from the page, and that gives us a nice little snippet. So when we post it, it appears there straight away. We can see where it's from, and then a person can basically just come in, click, and they get taken straight to the page. So what a great way of kind of using the content that's already out there to make information easily accessible, and saving us having to reinvent the wheel and spend a lot of time writing up news articles ourselves. Now, the other thing that I want to have a look at is creating a news article, which would probably be a little bit more business specific. So it's something about Chloe's Cupcakes, and we'd want to actually create a news post. So I just want to show you how easy it is to get some of these, to get a really kind of feature-rich newsletter and news page with images on, or we may want it to be blank, but it just looks, and I think straight away, it just looks very, very professional. All of this information can be customized however we need, but just to give you an idea, let's just create this page. We can change these images, we can obviously give it a name, and we've got that nice little feature in here where we can click into the person and see information about them, which may be good if kind of someone writes an article and then you want to have a bit of a chat about it. You can just click straight into their profile and send them an email straight away, which is very, very nice. We've got some text content here. Again, it's working similarly to our intranet page or to our home pages, where we can add a little feature in here, whichever might be relevant, and you might have a news article, and then you might have a form to get a bit of feedback on a particular thing that you've discussed in there. We've got images, captions, things like that, and you can see where this page has been sort of divided up into different bits of content. But I mean, yeah, it's super easy to add some of these images, customize, create, just make it look very, very professional. And then one of the other tools which I really, really like is this comments feature at the bottom. So let's post this news. I haven't actually named it, so let's do that first. So let's post that. So if you imagine this could be like your company updates for the month, it could be about an interesting, exciting event that's going on across the company. It can be anything and everything that you'd want, really. So we've created that news article. Let's just click into it and we can just link in directly from the home page. And if I just show you the comments feature, you can see we've got a like and a comment, a save for later even, which I haven't actually used myself. I should probably start using that one a little bit more. And also your tagging, just the same as you would with any other social media. You can just tag your colleagues if it works. There we go. You can just tag your colleagues and post those in there. And then you've also got that reply and like feature, which you're probably familiar with across a lot of different social media platforms as well. So again, it's just another one of those nice little features, help communication, help sharing and things like that. The very last thing on these news articles is about these options we've got up at the top here. So we can send an email. So we create this lovely newsletter, we create this lovely page in our SharePoint site, but we want to make sure that everyone's going to see it. So we can just send an email out, and this is probably where you would use your different distribution groups and things like that to send this out. And then we've got that newsletter sent there straight away. So I think we're just kind of tying in SharePoint with probably your usual marketing features that you're going to be using anyway. So having those tied together and very, very easy to kind of go from one to another is super useful. The other option we've got actually is to promote, and this gives us a few different options, but one of the nice ones that I like to use is add page to navigation. So once we've clicked that, you can now see that closed news is now up here on the navigation. So again, it's saying, look at me, a new post has been added. Here's how we can get to it. Very, very quick and easy to get straight in there. Okay, so next thing that I want to talk about, and this will be the last thing now. So I'd say we've taken a look at lots of different areas in SharePoint. I know it's been a lot, but there is a lot that I wanted to explain, and a lot of really, really good features to help you kind of communicate and share information across your business. Let's take a look now at Teams, and this is just going to be quite a brief one because I know that Lee did the Teams webinar. I can't remember whether it was last week or a couple of weeks ago. But just to give you an idea on how we're sort of integrating our SharePoint area with our teams. So we've got our sales team here, we've got our files, which is pretty standard. We've got a chat area, which not a lot's been going on. It's just been me creating new tabs up here. We've got a home page, which has basically been taken straight from our sales team. So it might be that you want to have that here. You might not want people to be going off to their browser. And I think if you are encouraging Teams use, which hopefully you are, it's nice to just have the content from SharePoint in here anyway, I think. Makes it nice and easy and straightforward to access. Again, it's fully functional. It works exactly the same. We can still click on people and click into our documents and do everything like we usually would. This customer contact form, I think that's a planner that I've created. Not really relevant for this webinar. Hopefully you had an idea of planner from Lee's webinar a couple of weeks ago. But the other one that I've got in here is the document library. Again, we can see our documents here. We can change the view, fully functional, do whatever we want with it. And you might have noticed here we've got the option to open it in SharePoint as well. So we're just kind of merging the two together, which is very nice. So I think that's everything. Hopefully you've picked up a lot of content. As I say, this information is going to be out there. I'm sure it will be posted to our social media pages and things like that. I am happy let's just change over to, to one of my other slides. I am happy to take questions and things like that, but you're always welcome to contact your account manager or our enquiries email address. Yeah, thank you very much for joining me. And yeah, I'll also be doing a webinar on the Power Platform next week. So hopefully you can come and join me on that as well, where we'll be talking a little bit about automation and how we can kind of improve our business productivity with that. But for now, I'll have a little look and just see if we've got any questions. I can see what, okay, no, that's not a question. Doesn't look like we have any questions for now. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to pop another one, pop something in there if you do want to. If not, as I say, we're always available. Do contact us. Our sales team are very, very helpful. We can offer a lot of support and information. It doesn't have to be about kind of starting from scratch. It might be just some tips and tricks that you need. You might just need a little bit of guidance because you know, it can be a little bit daunting, especially with a document structure. And one of those key things I think really is making sure that you're starting off with a really nice document structure from the offset, especially if you're new to SharePoint, definitely.